When business crime increases, it impacts the cost of doing business. And when the cost of doing business increases, you and I, as consumers, ultimately will pay more. This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight, I'm joined by Lizette Lancaster with the Crime Hub at the Institute for Security Studies and Kalyani Pillay, the Chief Executive of SABRIC, to find out just how bad the numbers are. Recent stats from the police came out, and these are the business-related crimes. Just have a look at what Karabo's pulled together on this particular one. South Africa's crime statistics came out recently. The numbers are horrific. Rapes, personal attacks in some cases are down. But we're talking about business crime tonight. And the issue of business crime is certainly very, very significant. Lizette Lancaster, I mean, the numbers are scary. And it feels like, certainly anecdotally, things are back out of control, even though crime levels are probably lower than they were 5 years ago. Are the stats even accurate?
Well, I think the stats are accurate. Look, we can't read too much into the statistics except for the general trends that they give us. For most crimes, we do see downward trends in the past decade, far lower than the statistics of 2004, 2005. However, we have been seeing a 361% increase in business robberies and an over 100% increase in house robberies in the past decade. So we should be concerned. I think the crimes that, that puts the most fear into people are the ones that are increasing, although there are many others that show decreases.
Absolutely. I mean, if we are vulnerable in our homes, we feel most vulnerable in our homes, and everybody's equally vulnerable in their home. All you do is put another 3 bricks up, get a bigger Rottweiler and more electric fencing, and then somebody lifts the gate off the rails and pops in to visit you anyway. And everybody's affected by that fear, Kalyani. When we look at it, how that translates into the business space, one can argue if crime is run by syndicates and the syndicates find it harder to break into a bank or stage a bank robbery, they target elsewhere. And that's certainly what seems to have been the trend in recent years.
Well, from a banking and cash in transit perspective, we certainly have been seeing the increase over the last year, maybe even towards the latter part of the year before. And over the last, especially looking at the police or the government financial year, we certainly saw that increase and not anything that we were excited about at all. But I must say, and I'm hoping that it's going to be encouraging as we go ahead, is that when we did the comparison from the start of the new financial year for government, when we looked at April to the end of June this year, we've already seen sort of fairly significant decreases. Now, let me tell you also is that because we were seeing this increase, we didn't wait until the end of the year to get this horrific figure that we're seeing. We already started with all the different initiatives that needed to be put into place. So there have been sort of fairly robust programs that have been in place. We've been working quite closely, business, not just the banking sector, but I think all of the business associations. But then you see this change in trend, and the change in trend has been away from the banks perhaps, but cell phone shops suddenly get hit, shopping malls get hit, jewelry stores get hit. The syndicates, as always, one step ahead, and isn't that the problem?
That's exactly the problem. We are sitting with relatively few gangs causing havoc, in especially provinces like Gauteng.
How do we know that there are relatively few gangs?
Well, we don't. I think that's part of the problem. I mean, the police, I would hope, would know. But, one player, one organised syndicate enters the market and you have a sharp increase. So it is that type of, the crime is of that nature. It's not like murder that is driven one murder at a time. So if you can, we saw sharp decreases ahead of the World Cup with a very strict and very successful Gauteng anti-robbery strategy. So it shows you that what can be done.
But that's what's so frustrating, is what can be done.
Yes.
Then the World Cup ends, we go, oh, thank goodness that's over. And the robbers go, well, thank goodness that's over, and out they come again. I mean,
Or they change their modus operandi.
The modus operandi changes all the time. You're absolutely right. They're really smart. They know exactly whenever strategies are put into place, whenever mitigation plans are put into place, they move, they displace, they move between sectors and between industries.
How good is our crime intelligence gathering?
Well, we're hoping that it's getting better. We're already starting to see a little bit of a change. We're starting to work from banking perspective, industry perspective, and cash and transit. We're already starting to see a little bit of a positive change. We're hoping that that's going to make a difference.
How much cooperation is there between the private sector and police? Because you guys will have a certain set of data, they will have a certain set of data. How effective is it?
Well, can I tell you that it's actually significantly improved? Certainly over the last in this year as well. Look, we have these waves all the time where you embark on different initiatives. I always wonder whether any program can be sustainable. We always talk about having sustainable programs. I don't know whether anything can be sustained, but I think you have to build into the program the fact that there'll always be changes. There's people coming, there's people going, there's expertise coming into the picture, there's expertise leaving. You've got to build and factor all of that in. But I think the relationship, there's definitely not an unwillingness from the police to want to make this. There's really a great goodwill and willingness from, especially from the leadership at the moment.
What about capacity? I mean, willingness is one thing and desire is another thing. What about capacity, ability? You go into a police station to report a fairly minor incident. It could be a bumper bashing, for example, and you met with a long face. Now, you're obliged by law to go through the process. The person is obliged by law to go through the process with you. They'd rather not be there doing the process. And that doesn't inspire confidence at all, does it, Lizette?
That's exactly one of the problems. I mean, the National Development Plan speaks towards, getting better morale, better professionalism in the police. We don't necessarily need the numbers. We need better recruitment policies, better training, and more oversight at station level. We need to know that
fighting crime is a confidence game, isn't it?
It is a confidence game. It's exactly that. Because what we don't know, like the figures for commercial crime, we know that there's a large dark figure of crimes that are not reported. So how do you fight a search if you don't know what you're fighting? So it is a confidence game. We need to build confidence in crime intelligence, because only then can we have the informant networks that are required, that you need with crimes of this nature. It only takes one tip-off to get a gang sometimes. You need better capacity within crime intelligence. We've seen a dwindling of number of reports that get generated from crime intelligence. There are pockets of excellence, and we should commend those men and women. However, it's clear that we need a strong commitment and strong capacity building within, especially crime commitment.
We look at the background to this, of course. We've got one of the most deeply unequal societies on earth, enormous gaps between rich and poor, a deep level of resentment, high levels of unemployment. We're talking about dealing with symptoms, and until we deal with cause, we're going to run around like a fireman trying to put out a blazing petrol tanker with a bucket of sand.
And that's why we've been calling not only to target robberies. That is one of the strategies. The long-term marathon that we all in society need to run would be quite a multifaceted violence prevention strategy that is required. That requires more social workers in communities.
Education,
all of that.
Poverty alleviation, there's a whole...
Private sector and government to create more jobs, So it is a complicated thing with multiple drivers. And if we don't address it, we'll never get to stop
and
this.
even the models in terms of the investigations, you're looking at intelligence-driven investigations. The models need to be re-entrenched. You'd look at the old models that we used to have with the priority crimes issues around prosecution-led investigations, prosecution-guided investigations. Those models worked.
But we've also got a crisis of confidence in police. Riapiach is under siege after Marikana. We've got a crisis of confidence in the National Prosecuting Authority as well. There is a sense, and I don't mix with criminals, well, not knowingly mix with criminals, but my sense is they sit in the pub at night going, these guys are in chaos, it's open season. And until we sort out those sorts of structures as well, we're under a huge amount of duress, surely, Lizette?
Exactly. We've seen massive increase in the number of arrests being made, but those have not translated into case finalizations. So you're sitting with almost over 1 million people, perhaps, being arrested a year with cases not being finalized, if I
with the bail system
crudely.
That's ineffective. And, yeah.
So you're just breeding more distrust in the criminal justice system. There's a 7-point plan on the table that's incorporated in the National Development Plan. You know, it's the review of the criminal justice system already way back in 2007. Every year we see some steps have been taken towards this implementation plan, but it needs to be done with absolute urgency, and government needs to tell us how we can help, you know, as ordinary citizens and business. And I also think we really do need more data from them. It's not there to...
But how effective? I mean, you run the hub.
Yes.
So you've got data, and does that collate with what is officially available?
There's never enough available. We do not know if gun-related incidents are increasing or decreasing. We do not know where women are raped and how often and by whom. We don't know who gets murdered. In 2007, 16% of murders were as a result of another crime. I can tell you now that I think it's far more than that, with the increase in robberies and a decrease in socioeconomic sort of assaults. So we need that information in order to create the strategies that are required. And I think as a society we should be trusted with these statistics.
Completely, because we need to be part of the solution. I mean, and ultimately, Kalyani, it breeds a level of discomfort, it breeds concern, it breeds worry, and when people are worried, they start making decisions about the future. And if they make decisions about the future, they go and say, hold on a second, let me read Fortune magazine to see where my next job is going to be, far away from a hotbed of crime.
Sure. No, absolutely. And I think the issue around having the right amount of data to make the right decisions and have the right strategies are really important. And I think, you know, with our sector, fortunately, because it's a smaller sector to deal with, we've already have that advantage in that we've gone and we've made some strides. And I think business is sort of moving that way in terms of now getting themselves a little more organized to better support government, because then they've identified the gap. And hopefully, you know, we'll try and get there and give that better support.
Lots of talk about hope, and I hope you're right. Lizette Lancaster from the Crime Hub at the Institute for Security Studies, and Kalyani Pillay, Chief Executive of SABRIC, this evening, talking about the issues of crime. It's a depressing topic on the eve of a public holiday, but certainly food for thought. We get more agencies working together to make a difference, at the risk of sounding like Jacob Zuma. That is it for this evening. Thank you for watching. There'll be more tonight, tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.